in our last demo, we talked about some of the selection tools, which were rectangular, elliptical, marquee. We talked about some of our lassos. We talked about our paintbrush tool, some of the shortcuts to get to those. For instance, B for brush, L for lasso, M for marquee. So those are just some of the tools we've talked about. We also talked about our layers window over here, so I'm just going to pull this up. So if you kind of see what I just did was if you do grab one of these tabs, you'll be able to move them and drag them and place them where you want. You can also go over here and you can drag and drop those tabs as well. So just reorder them so they all have different purposes. From here, what we're going to talk about is a couple other tools and how to start opening up files within Photoshop to start manipulating them. So from here, what we're actually going to do is create a new layer. So I'm going to go down to my layers window and to that box right next to the trash can, create a new layer. It should be Command N is new layer. I'm sorry, Command Shift N would be new layer. Hit OK. And there we go. So you can see the checkerboarded, which means completely see-through. And then you also see that we have our other layers. I'm just going to drag this down so we can see them all. And we have our eyeballs turned on here, so you can turn on and off these. So for instance, if we turn this one off, we would be able to see just our white background. If we turn this one off, then it's just completely transparent. So basically, you have nothing there. From here, what we're going to do is we're just going to turn off the eyeball on layer 3 just because we really don't need it right now. We're going to go and we're going to use a familiar tool. We're just going to use one of the elliptical marquees. So I'm going to take my ellipse, which is just that circle. Remember, we can create one if we just click and drag, or if we hold down Shift, we can create multiple. So you can create one, you can create a couple here, and we're just going to fill this. So I think last time we talked about our paint bucket tool. This time we're going to talk about our gradient. So it's another way to fill selection. So a gradient tool, for instance, is going to pull up a different selection of options up here. So we're going to go up and we're going to select just a different color swatch here. So this one you can see is your foreground and your background color, which is visible down in your toolbar. But you can go there, you can click any other one. So these are all preloaded. You can also say we went to this one, we didn't like this one, we could also double click here and we could pull up our gradient editor, and this basically allows us to create our own. So you can see the presets all there. Okay, some of them are just random colors, some of them are made to look metallic, so that one's called chrome. We can also though go down here and we can double click on those little selections and pick our colors there as well. So now we have this red to yellow, and it's creating that blend. We can create, okay, where is that blend middle, that location. We can also say how far does this come across and how fast did that change happen. I can also just straight up click out here, and then if I double click there, I can choose another color. So let's say, alright, I want this lighter one, and then now I have controls over how this transitions across. So that's just kind of how you use your gradient to create the color that you want. What we're going to do next is just hit OK. You can also save it. And then because we have a selection, we're on layer 4, basically what this is going to do is just fill this thing. So what I'm going to do is click, I'm going to drag, and you see that line that comes out. The shorter the line, the more intense that gradient or that change from one color or a couple colors to another is going to be. So if I drag across large, you can see it's much more subtle, okay, tighter, very intense, and then you can just kind of play with all the different options. And that change between colors is just depending on how far I pull my, my tool across here. So sometimes it takes a minute. All right. So that's one thing. Say we wanted to move this, right? I wanted these maybe up in a corner. The tool we're going to use for that is actually going to be our move tool, which is right up here top of our toolbar. Depends if you have the 2-column. If you have 2-column, that'd be right side, but generally at the top. And I think it's V is V is our hotkey for that one. What this allows us to do is actually move. I'm gonna turn this off so it looks like yours. just to move these around. Okay, so we'll have layer 4 selected, so it's allowing me to move these, images or things I'm creating on there just around. What I just turned off were just two options, which actually I want you to turn on. One of them is our auto select. This I use, and then I, choose when I want to use it and when not to. But for the most part, I leave it on. What that's going to do is auto select layers. So, for instance, if I had this selected and I clicked, it's going to go and it's actually going to select that layer, and now it's going to make, allow me to move that layer around instead. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. Command Z to undo. I'm also going to deselect because we don't really need a selection anymore. With auto select on, I could then keep moving this around, or I can click on these because I actually know those are on another layer, and now I can move those around as well. Okay, just going back and forth. Okay, the other tool up here, or the other checkbox we have, is our show transform controls. That's really important. If you move computer stations, you need to return this on. It's not going to stay. Same with auto select. Okay, so I'm going to say show transform controls, and now we have what's called a bounding box, and this allows us to make our image larger and smaller. Okay, so I can make these real tiny. I can also, if you see, I'll talk about the sizing first here, so I can make these real large. But you can see that has these boxes on the edge, and those are, you can just hover over them and it'll kind of give you different options. So this, you see, if I go to the top, it's telling me I can move this thing and stretch it up and down. If I go to the side, I can stretch it wide, or I can go to the corner. And the corner allows me to basically just make the whole thing larger. Now you can see right now it's gonna, it's getting kind of out of whack there, so I'm gonna Command Z to undo. If I hold down Shift though on my keyboard while I drag this up, what you'll notice is that stays in proportion, and that doesn't, it won't ever really change other than the size. It's gonna keep the same, proximity to each other. It's just gonna get bigger. The one other thing is if you go to the edge of a corner, you'll see you have like that little half circle up here. You see that right there? So when I toggle off, and that is our rotation. So I can just flip this around. So, we're just messing around with this with these basic tools and options, but, this is really going to be useful for a lot of things that we're going to do in here. Then I can go back and I can reshrink this down. So, a lot of times when I'm done editing something, right, say I'm going to make another shape, right, I'm going to go over here. You're going to click on that tool and it's going to ask you, do you want to apply it, not apply it, cancel. In this case, we're going to apply it, okay. Another thing you could do though, say I went back and I made some more changes, right? I went back to my move tool. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make this large, and I'm going to go do something else. I could hit don't apply, and it'll go back. So the other option that you do have for setting that is if you make it larger, you can just hit the button enter or return, and then you're also solidifying it like that. Really, you're setting the change in action there. Okay, so those are just some of the other basic tools. Those are really fairly useful within this whole program, but we'll probably keep talking about those. So I'm just dragging this stuff back here to kind of get it back in place. All right, from here, so we've talked about our move tool, talked about our selections, and say, for instance, we wanted to match a color. So I'm going to create a new layer here. Okay, I'm going to hit return to apply the settings. All right, so if you don't apply the settings, it won't let you do some of the other things, like maybe click on a new layer. So for instance, I'm going to go down here, click a new layer. If I didn't apply those settings, it would not let me do that. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I want to make another shape, for instance. So I'm going to click my rectangular marquee this time, create a bunch of squares, and I want to match this one to the teals. Okay, so I'm going to go here with my color eyedropper, which is fifth one down on the, or is it the sixth one down, my column view. So it looks just like an eyedropper. I'm going to go out here, I'm going to basically just click on my teal, and what you'll see is it selected that color. So if I click on the red, doesn't matter what layer this is on, it's going to select that color. Now, say I want a darker one. Okay, well, I have the exact same match, which is what really the purpose of this. I'm going to go double click here, or single click there, and make it darker. And now I'm going to go and let's paint this. So if you don't remember, with the paintbrush, we can go up to our brush selection. We probably talked about diameter, how to change that, which is also the brackets to the right of the P. You can also do it by hand. You also have different brush options. We talked about some of the softness and the hardness of the edges. You can see there's other brushes preloaded in here, but I'm just going to use a basic soft one for today. And then I'm going to use my brackets to make that larger and just kind of airbrush the edges. Okay, and I am making sure I'm on a new layer. So right here, layer 5, I know I'm on that because it's highlighted in blue. Right, and you can see I kind of make it look transparent here. Okay, and deselect that. So just a couple other basic tools, and that's it.